Good evening. There are a number of key issues affecting a large number of people in Glasgow that lead to poor health and low life expectancy. The good news is there are a vast majority of groups within Glasgow and the surrounding areas that are set up to help with these issues directly and indirectly. And the problem that we are setting out to solve is how best to match these groups with the people that need them most. There are over 500 groups that help with these community issues, according to the ALICE project, which is a recent government-backed project which categorises these groups. And we firmly believe that a recommendation-based approach, as opposed to a search or anything you have to go to direct and use yourself, is a good way to match people up with these groups. And Amazon and Netflix agree and use this widely. We also believe that open data is key to this idea. So how does it work? We take information from, for instance, local champions, people who use these services. We go and speak to them, get their information about these local issues. We also take open data, statistics about local places, and as I said before, information about groups from the ALICE system. Now, how do we use this information? We use a form of targeted advertising. For instance, if you're a young mum, you're sitting in the GP's office, you might, in the waiting room, you might see one of our advertisements on TV and a smart screen. So one way that we would use this information is that it's through a managed system. So you go to your GP, and the GP uses our system to recommend, based on your individual needs, groups that might be of interest to you. And on subsequent meetings, you feed back information on these groups, which again helps with the system. The second way is a direct app-based approach. So you download the app, tell it a bit about yourself, and it actually recommends groups to you based on your personal circumstances.
Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit now to consider some of the stories of the type of people that we'd like to know, or would like to interact with this kind of system and how we can actually help them. So consider Joan here. She's an elderly lady living in Annie's Land. She's quite lonely. She doesn't have any major health problems, but she has aches and pains that mean she goes to the GP quite a lot. She speaks to the GP that's more a social thing than a medical need. The GP, or indeed somebody there, the organisation that's looking to help this project in government, wants to put a links worker in each GP. And there's currently a pilot project where they want that worker to interact with information systems to provide that person support outside of the GP's time. So we can help her by giving her information on coffee mornings, etc., in her local area and improve her quality of life long term. So consider also another common story in Glasgow. So here is a middle-aged man who's from probably a family that's had a lot of health and social problems. He's a hard-working man, spends a lot of time in the pub with his friends. He's had a heart attack recently. He knows he needs to do something to change his life. If he doesn't, there's going to be a problem, and he actively wants to pursue this. So unlike Joan, who can't use a technical system and needs that third-party support, Jim here can pick up his smartphone and actually actively engage with this system. So where is the data actually helping us here? So we work with data all the time in our backgrounds. So we know that in different areas, we can look at regionally the kind of support systems that are available and the kinds of support projects. You can see here in Calton, which is notorious for its terrible statistics. People are dying so much sooner. 54, I think, is the number they quote there. It's clearly the case that the social problems that are being attacked already and targeted by those local groups are doing fantastic work. So you can see the kinds of things, drugs, alcohol, benefits there. In comparison, Hillhead, where instead what you're seeing is well-being, wellness, the kind of stuff that people are more interested in, better living there, where the problems aren't so prevalent. So combined with the kind of information you see in the previous slides from the other group, you can see there's very good distributions that allow us to target and tailor these recommendations to people based on this information. So the health outcomes that we can offer people here. So self-management is the real key. People can take responsibility of their own health and help themselves longer over time. So this will reduce the strain on GP. So the business case here is quite simple. Save money. If we can reduce very expensive GP appointments, £25 each, millions of these happening every year. If we can reduce these, even just a small percent, we save a huge amount of money. Sustainability, of course, this is the kind of business idea that is scalable to other areas. With this kind of information, we can draw information on the trends in certain areas and target funding and resources appropriately beyond just these static resources, beyond the static data. Remember, we're using the data to target the very problem.
Thank you, WeeGroup.
Done.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Questions from judges?
Sorry, apologies.
Thank you.
So this Yelp for healthcare, who's the end user? Because you were talking about the older person there and saying that it would be the healthcare provider who would spot the stuff, and she's not using that mobile app. So
No,
who are they? Who is the end user? And what's
Exactly.
the market?
This is why we did two channels. One was the app for people that proactively want to access themselves and have the ability to do so. Alternatively, of course, the GP will be able to use this resource. Alternatively, this organisation, the Alliance organisation that's trying to encourage this, are putting workers that are trained to use information systems with this kind of information in the practice. They can interact with that person if that person chooses to do so inside of the practice. And they essentially will manage their profile on their behalf and liaise with them and this system. So they act as their agent as such.
I think I may be asking the same question in a different way, but in terms of just partners,
Yep.
how does that, just explain how that rolls out in order that you can identify the local champions who will report back?
So there are two aspects to what you said there. So first of all, the local champions. We know in the community already there are lots of people. For example, we know of a recovering alcoholic who already has a list in an Excel spreadsheet of great resources that he found useful. He recommends those to other people, but that doesn't scale that idea. But that individual, that person, can make better recommendations than probably an algorithm ever could. And his value, he adds that social value almost as a social prescription, but we need to facilitate the ability for him to interact with the kind of people that need that. So there's scope here both for computational side as well as that social side. That facilitates that. From the practice point of view, this organisation that's just started the last week, I had a meeting with them last week about this kind of idea, and they are putting people in practice as a pilot project right now in 12 of the worst GP practices across Glasgow, and they are trying to see how people work. They currently have a very basic search engine, and we're looking to understand users' needs individually rather than just a simple Google style, you type a word and you get something back. We can actually try and do what's best for the user based upon what we know in that area is helping.
Cindy?
Yep. This is a really interesting idea and chimes with work that some of my colleagues are doing at Glasgow. My question, though, is how do you evaluate the community groups? Are you making recommendations blind, or is there some idea of what people are going to get out of it and the value of these groups?
That's a very, very good question. So I've got to be quick. So we're PhDs in information retrieval. We spend a lot of our time doing evaluation. Now, of course, we can look at people, whether or not people continue using the system. Those are easy, obvious metrics, as long as they're using it. The reality is we need to actually speak to people with this organisation. They see the needs one-to-one. They know exactly what people are looking for, and we would need to work with them in order to identify whether or not people are happy with those recommendations and improve upon that, because there's no silver bullet here, and everyone's different, and there's always going to be scope for improvement. So,
Thank you, WeeGroup.
thank you.